It is exactly 09 a.m. on March 7, 2026, and a terrifying, unnatural silence has descended over the once impenetrable command corridors of the Middle East. While the global media was fixated on the blinding streaks of the Iron Beam over Dubai yesterday, a far more surgical, cold-blooded, and irreversible operation was being finalized in the smoking ruins of southern Beirut. An operation that has effectively decapitated the entire central nervous system of the axis of resistance in a single terminal afternoon. We are receiving raw, unfiltered data suggesting that the Israeli Air Force didn't just bomb buildings, they executed a broad-scale wave of destruction specifically engineered to liquidate the physical and digital presence of Hezbollah's high command, turning their most secure underground bunkers into concrete tombs before a single distress signal could even be broadcast to Tehran. You need to understand the gravity of this tactical vacuum. As we speak, every primary drone depot, every tactical coordination hub, and every encrypted relay station across the northern front has been systematically erased from the map, leaving the remaining local cells in a state of terminal paralysis, a condition where the foot soldiers are alive, but the brain that gives them orders has been surgically removed. But the nightmare for the IRGC is only beginning. While the smoke still rises from the Dahieh district, Donald Trump has just delivered a shattering update on Truth Social, confirming that the Iranian Integrated Air Defense System, IADS, has not just been suppressed, it has officially ceased to exist, pulverized by a relentless multi-axis campaign of US and Israeli Operation Epic Fury strikes that have turned the entire Iranian airspace into a wide-open hunting ground for the next phase of this global reset. This is no longer a conventional war of attrition. This is the first AI-driven decapitation of a regional superpower, where neutral nations like Sri Lanka are already moving to seize Iranian-linked assets to distance themselves from a regime that is effectively a ghost state with no air cover, no command chain, and no path to retaliation. You are currently watching the only source of deep theater intelligence on SAM Conflict News. And because of the massive electronic warfare throttling happening across the globe right now, your ability to see this video is a strategic advantage. Hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications immediately, because in the next 24 hours, the map you thought you knew will be physically rewritten by the sheer force of this technological hegemony. We are tracking the movement of the Interim Leadership Council in Tehran, who are reportedly operating from mobile, low-tech bunkers because they can no longer trust a single piece of digital hardware in their inventory. They have realized that the golden era Trump promised isn't an invitation, it's a mandatory restructuring of the world order, and the Axis just found out they are the first line item to be deleted. Stay tuned, because as we transition into the secret coordinates of the Beirut strikes and the intercepted panicked communications from the IRGC's Ghost Command, you will realize that the war didn't just start yesterday, it effectively ended the moment the first laser locked onto its target. The silence coming from Tehran this morning isn't just a communication failure. It is the sound of a superpower's structural death rattle as we move deeper into the fallout of March 7, 2026. While the physical ruins of Beirut and the charred remains of the Iranian Integrated Air Defense System tell one story, the digital ghosts inside the IRGC's remaining bunkers tell a far more terrifying one. The command chain is no longer just broken, it has been digitally vaporized. According to intelligence data we've intercepted here at SAM Conflict News, the Interim Leadership Council in Tehran has reportedly been forced to issue orders via handwritten notes delivered by motorcycle couriers, a desperate throwback to 19th century warfare caused by the total electromagnetic dominance of Operation Epic Fury. But the real hammer blow dropped just minutes ago on Truth Social, where Donald Trump escalated the tension to a terminal level by delivering what insiders are calling the final ultimatum. He didn't just dismiss Mojtaba Khomeini as an unacceptable lightweight, he officially declared that any attempt by the IRGC to initiate the sacred retaliation protocols would be met with the immediate kinetic erasure of every remaining subterranean asset in the Islamic Republic. You have to understand what this means for the global economy. By branding the Iranian succession as a Maduro-style illegitimate power grab, Trump has effectively authorized neutral nations and global financial institutions to freeze and seize every single cent of Iranian-linked wealth currently held in the international system, a move we are already seeing play out as vessels are detained as far away as the Indian Ocean. This is the Ghost Command era, where the leaders of the Axis are alive on paper but dead in the real-time theater of operations, trapped in a feedback loop of their own outdated propaganda, while the Iron Beam laser shield continues to make their remaining missile stockpiles as useless as scrap metal. If you are still relying on the legacy media to explain how the world shifted from a multipolar conflict to a single-polar golden era hegemony in less than 48 hours, you are already behind the curve. You must hit that subscribe button now, because as the electrical grids of the Axis flickers and fails, we are the only ones holding the high-voltage truth of the 2026 reset. We are now preparing to show you the specific coordinates of the command vacuums across Lebanon and Syria, where the resistance has simply ceased to exist, and the terrifying reason why Russia and China have suddenly gone radio silent as they watch the petro reset dismantle their primary energy lever over the West. Stay with us, because the climax of this shift isn't just about who died in the bunkers, it's about who is being allowed to survive in the new world map. We are now entering the heart of the 2026 reset, a dimension of warfare that feels more like science fiction than geopolitical reality, the era of the AI-driven decapitation. While the world's military analysts are still trying to count the craters in southern Beirut, the true architecture of this collapse lies in the Maven Smart System, a Palantir-powered neural network that has effectively turned the Middle East into a giant, real-time digital chessboard where the predator knows your move before you even make it. The precision we witnessed in the broad-scale wave of strikes yesterday was not human. It was the result of machine learning algorithms that analyzed decades of Hezbollah's communication patterns, thermal signatures, and supply routes, pinpointing every single drone depot and command node for simultaneous liquidation in a single afternoon. This is why the Northern Front has fallen into a state of terminal paralysis. You cannot fight a ghost that sees through your walls and predicts your panic. But the most shattering component of this scientific conquest is the official activation of the Or-Aton, or Iron Beam laser system, a weapon that has permanently broken the thousand-year geometry of warfare by proving that the speed of light has finally replaced the speed of sound. Imagine the psychological terror inside the remaining Iranian missile units as they realize that their multi-million-dollar ballistic stockpiles are being vaporized for exactly $3 per shot. The economic equation of war has been flipped on its head. While the axis of resistance banked on a strategy of asymmetric attrition to bankrupt the West, they are the ones now facing total financial and tactical insolvency as their $1,000 drones are erased by $3 beams of light. This technological hegemony is exactly what Donald Trump was referring to when he confirmed that the Iranian Integrated Air Defense System, or IADS, has officially ceased to exist. It wasn't just destroyed, it was rendered technologically obsolete in a matter of hours. As we speak, this AI-driven shield is not just protecting cities, it is securing the first freedom tankers moving through the newly opened maritime corridors, ensuring that any attempt to re-block the Strait of Hormuz is met with a silent, invisible erasure from a distance of 10 kilometers. If you haven't subscribed to SAM Conflict News yet, you are missing the blueprint of the golden era. Hit that notification bell now, because we are the only ones tracking the real-time fallout of a world where the superpowers no longer use ammunition, but electricity and algorithms to dictate the terms of national survival. We are now moving into the terrifying reality of the petro reset, where this technological shield is being used to back a new gold-stabilized energy token that is systematically dismantling the old world's debt-based empire. Stay tuned, because the next part of this breakdown reveals the secret coordinates of the global stability zones and why your bank account might be the next front line in this 2026 revolution. As the kinetic dust begins to settle over the decapitated command structures of Beirut and Tehran on this pivotal March 7, 2026, the global theater is shifting from the physical battlefield to the cold, unforgiving digital ledgers of the international banking system, where the most lethal strike of Operation Epic Fury is currently being delivered not by a missile, but by the official and irreversible burial of the petrodollar system that has underpinned globalist hegemony since 1971. While the world watched the Iron Beam vaporize Iranian drones for a mere $3 per shot, Donald Trump has executed a strategic financial maneuver of unprecedented scale, effectively decoupling the American economy from the volatile energy blackmail of the Middle East by declaring a state of golden necessity that marks the return of a gold-backed digital dollar. This is the petro reset we warned you about, a moment where the closure of the Strait of Hormuz by a desperate, leaderless IRGC was not a catastrophe, but a calculated trigger for Washington to activate force majeure on $3 trillion of hostile foreign assets. You have to understand that as neutral nations like Sri Lanka begin seizing Iranian-linked vessels to align with this new golden era, we are witnessing a global wealth transfer, where the old debt-based fiat currencies of the Axis and their silent partners are being systematically devalued, while the first freedom tankers moving through the newly secured maritime corridors now demand payment in a gold-stabilized energy token, effectively stripping the old globalist elites of their primary lever of control over Western markets. This is why the Oman Protocols were never a simple peace treaty. They were a managed surrender of the old world's financial architecture, enforced by a technological shield that makes traditional economic retaliation impossible. As we speak, the massive digital throttling across the globe is an attempt to hide this terminal collapse of the fiat empire. And if you aren't subscribed to SAM Conflict News right now, you are operating with a map of a world that no longer exists. Hit that notification bell immediately, because as the electrical grids of the old guard flicker and fail, we are the only source tracking the high-voltage transition into a reality where the US dollar is once again backed by the undeniable physical reality of gold and the absolute dominance of American energy technology. The genius of the strategy lies in its brutal simplicity. By allowing the Iranian regime to commit geopolitical suicide through its broad-scale wave of failed aggression, Trump has created the legal and moral vacuum necessary to erase 40 years of shadow banking networks in a single afternoon, leaving the remaining interim leadership council in Tehran with no air defense, no command chain, and no currency that the new world is willing to accept. This is the climax of the 2026 reset, and as the global supply chain is re-engineered at the speed of light, ask yourself if you are ready for a world where the superpowers are no longer fighting for influence, but for the total erasure of their enemies' capacity to participate in the new economy. As we cross the threshold of this fifth part on March 7th, 2026, we are no longer just discussing destroyed buildings or devalued currencies, but the terrifying emergence of a human vacuum across the entire command structure of the Axis, where the broad-scale wave of strikes in Beirut hasn't just liquidated the leadership, it has erased the very concept of a successor. While the world's media is frantically speculating on the whereabouts of the IRGC's top generals, Our intelligence at SAM Conflict News indicates a state of psychological decapitation, where the mid-level officers in Tehran are refusing to pick up the mantle of command because they realize that being in charge in the 2026 reset is effectively a death sentence signed by the invisible hand of AI-driven targeting. Donald Trump's latest declaration hasn't just branded the potential rise of Mujtaba Khomeini as a Maduro-style illegitimacy, it has sent a shockwave through the bureaucratic heart of the Islamic Republic, signaling that the golden era will not tolerate any leadership that doesn't fit the strict parameters of the Oman protocols. You have to understand the depth of this betrayal. While the foot soldiers were promised a sacred retaliation, the elite circles are reportedly in the midst of a migration of power, attempting to secure their personal wealth in neutral zones like Sri Lanka, while their own integrated air defense system, as Trump confirmed, is now a smoldering memory. This isn't just a war, it's a forced evolution where the rules of regional survival are being dictated by the $3 physics of the iron beam and the cold, gold-stabilized logic of the new American hegemony. If you aren't subscribed to this channel yet, you are missing the most critical transition in modern history. Hit that notification bell now, because as we prepare to dive into Part 6, where we will reveal the secret list of stability zones that are being carved out of the old borders, you will realize that the map of 2026 isn't being drawn by diplomats in Geneva, but by algorithms in Virginia and lasers over the Gulf. We are watching the terminal collapse of the old guard's will to fight, replaced by a desperate scramble for survival in a world where the shield of the Axis has not just fallen, it has been scientifically proven to be obsolete. As the digital clock ticks closer to the point of no return on this afternoon of March 7, 2026, we are witnessing something far more permanent than a military skirmish. We are witnessing the physical and legal erasure of the borders that have defined the Middle East for over a century, as the Oman protocols transition from a whispered secret into a brutal, on-the-ground reality that is redrawing the sovereign lines of the entire region in real time. While the mainstream media is still trying to process the smoke over Beirut's Dayeh district, our deep theater intelligence at SAM Conflict News has intercepted the preliminary coordinates of what the Trump administration is calling the Global Stability Zones, a series of high-security enclaves carved out of the former territories of the Axis, where the old laws no longer apply and the new golden era hegemony is enforced by the unblinking eye of the Maven AI and the invisible perimeter of the Iron Beam laser shield. You have to understand the sheer scale of this territorial restructuring. These are not occupations in the traditional sense, but economic sovereignty corridors designed to protect the newly established freedom lanes and ensure that the petro reset cannot be sabotaged by the leaderless remnants of the IRGC's Ghost Command. As the integrated air defense systems of the old regime lie in smoldering ruins, confirmed by the White House as a total tactical annihilation, the vacuum left behind is being filled by a new form of corporate military governance, where neutral nations like Sri Lanka and other emerging economies are already being integrated into a gold standard trade network that effectively bypasses the old debt-choked institutions of the West. Every mountain pass, every undersea cable, and every oil terminal from the Gulf of Oman to the Mediterranean is being re-indexed into a digital ledger that ignores the traditional borders of Lebanon, Syria, and Iran, treating the entire axis of resistance as a bankrupt estate being liquidated by the victors of Operation Epic Fury. The psychological impact on the ground is absolute, as the local populations realize that their former protectors, the command chain that promised sacred retaliation, have been surgically removed and replaced by an autonomous $3 per shot defense grid. The very concept of national resistance is evaporating into a state of managed submission. we are tracking reports of local tribal leaders and former mid-level officials in the Levant frantically reaching out to the new stability administrators to secure a place in the upcoming Golden Reset, realizing that the Maduro-style succession attempt by Mojtaba Khomeini was not a revolution, but a final failed gasp of a dying era that Donald Trump has already erased from the future map. If you are not subscribed to this channel right now, you are essentially navigating a ghost world with a compass that points to a North Pole that no longer exists. Hit that notification bell and stay focused, because as we prepare to enter Part 7, we are going to expose the terrifying reason why the world's other silent giants have remained radio silent, while their primary energy leverage over the world was dismantled in a single surgical afternoon. The era of the nation-state as we knew it is being deleted, and in its place, a high-tech gold-backed empire of necessity is emerging from the ruins of the 2026 collapse, leaving no room for those who still cling to the broken promises of the 20th century.